Dad chose my brother's camping trip over my wedding, so I had my stepdad walk me down the aisle. He showed up crying after seeing the photos and is now begging for a second ceremony. Asterisk asterisk. Yesterday, I got married, and in the evening, after everything was over, my dad finally showed up. We exchanged words that made him cry, and now I feel awful because of that. For some context, my fiancé and I got engaged about 5 months ago, and since neither of us wanted a huge wedding with a lot of people in a massive venue, we decided to get married in our backyard with just our family and friends. We wanted to keep the wedding private, small, and intimate. We had been together for 4 years, and this was a really special day since we were getting married on the day of our 4th anniversary together. So, even though it was a small wedding, it was obviously still not feasible to reschedule it because we had decorators and caterers coming in. That's why I could not entertain my dad's request to postpone it. And more than a matter of couldn't, it was mostly because I didn't want to. I didn't think it was important enough to do such a thing. It wasn't like my dad was asking me to reschedule my wedding for something important. He wanted me to postpone it because my golden child brother was in town and had organized a camping trip for the same weekend. Yeah, I'm not even making this up. And I don't think I would have ever been able to make something as ludicrous as this up. Last week, my dad called me and told me that he wouldn't be able to make it to my wedding if I had it this weekend because of a medical emergency. It was a very lame excuse because I couldn't think of a single medical emergency that would require him to wait for a week and couldn't be rescheduled. So, I pushed him until he finally told me the truth. He confessed that he had agreed to go on a camping trip that my brother had surprised him with, but unfortunately, it coincided with my wedding date. I think it's pretty obvious what the choice should have been, but for my dad, the camping trip was the highest priority. My brother only comes back home for a couple of weeks every year, and my dad didn't want to lose out on spending time with him while he was here. He tried to tell me that rescheduling my wedding would be easy because it wasn't like I was having a huge wedding in the first place. I just had to tell a few people that I had rescheduled it and speak to the vendors, and that's it. I tried to explain to him that the date we were getting married on was really important to me, but after talking to him for a while, I kind of knew that it was pointless because he had already made up his mind and was going to go on the camping trip with my brother. It didn't come as a surprise that he had chosen my brother because honestly, he's always been the golden child. My brother, who is 30, is 3 years older than me and has always been an overachiever, while I've just been an ordinary kid. Naturally, he got a lot of attention from everyone and was always praised, while I was kind of overlooked. I used to feel really jealous of him. I wanted to be happy for my brother, but I just couldn't because he was such a brat with a huge, overinflated ego. He knew that he was pretty great at a lot of things, and I guess all the attention he had always received made him pretty arrogant. He really thought that he was God's gift to mankind. In short, he was insufferable and a bit of a bully to me, so we never got along. I was glad to see the back of him when he left for college. Our parents got divorced when I was in middle school, and it happened because my mother had an affair with one of her friends from college. The divorce was really nasty and left everyone feeling bitter about it. But thankfully, my dad agreed to a shared custody arrangement with my mom in spite of everything. If I'm being honest, I would say that the divorce was something everyone had seen coming. The only surprise was the fact that my mom had an affair, but no one was shocked that my parents were getting divorced. For as long as I can remember, they'd always been fighting. None of my childhood memories, even the happy ones, have my parents being happy together. When we were out among other people or during vacations or holidays, they would put on a happy face for the sake of the family, but that was just for show. There were weeks when they would hardly even speak to each other or look at each other. They even slept in different rooms. I'm pretty sure that after a certain point, my parents had fallen out of love with each other and were just staying together for the sake of it. Neither of them did anything to fix that. So, my mom ended up having an affair. I'm not trying to defend her, but my dad had never been an easy guy to live with. During the time she had the affair, he was going through a particularly rough patch in their marriage. They were fighting viciously almost every day and had started hitting the bottle, which seemed to make the fights even worse. One day, my mom finally told him the truth about her affair and left the house. But she still stayed in touch with her kids, or at least she tried to stay in touch with both of us. I was the only one who would respond to her messages while my brother ignored her because he could never truly bring himself to forgive her for cheating on our dad. It was quite expected that he wouldn't be able to forgive her because my dad and my brother had always had a very special bond. It was very obvious to me that my dad had a favorite, and even though he insisted that he didn't, his behavior made it very obvious. As we grew up, my relationship with my dad was strained at best. After the divorce, when I decided to maintain a cordial relationship with my mom and my stepdad, I guess he started to resent me. He was very distant from me afterward. I think he had wanted me to behave the same way that my brother had been constantly bad-mouthing our mother and her husband. My mom got married to my stepdad a couple of months after the divorce was finalized, and I was a bridesmaid at her wedding while my brother refused to even attend. But she still had partial custody of us, so whether my brother liked it or not, he would be forced to spend half the month with her. He was intolerable during those couple of weeks, especially because my mother did not play favorites with us. I guess that didn't sit right with him, because he couldn't get away with his terrible behavior. Several times, my dad even tried to file for full custody because he believed my mother and her husband were tormenting his son, but his claims had no weight, so he failed to get custody of us. I'm glad, though, because at least with my mom, I had one parent who cared about me, and my stepdad was a pretty nice guy, so it's not like I hated him either. I was really little and confused about whether I should be okay with my mom in spite of the fact that she had cheated on my dad. But after a while, I just decided that I would do whatever made me happy. Having a good relationship with my mother made me happy, and I'm glad I put in the time and effort to build a good relationship with her. We ended up losing her to cancer about 6 years ago, and I'm very grateful for all the time we got to spend together. Regardless of what happened in her marriage, she was always a good mother to me, and that's what matters. Even in her last few days, my brother was hardly there, but at least he bothered to visit her a couple of times, and I guess that brought her some peace before she finally passed away. A couple of months after her passing, my stepdad left the state, but we've kept in touch. About a year after my mom passed away, my brother got a job offer that required him to relocate to London, and he took it. He lives there now and comes back once a year to visit our father for a couple of weeks, which is why he is here now. My brother and I no longer speak, but after my mom's passing and my brother leaving, my dad and I started improving our relationship. He apologized to me for being cold to me after he found out about my mother's affair. He had just felt betrayed and hurt by a lot of things and ended up behaving in ways he wasn't proud of, especially with me. He acknowledged that he had always paid more attention to my brother than to me, and that's why we had such a strained and difficult relationship. But he said that he wanted to work on it, and that's what we did. For the past couple of years, we had been getting along well, which I didn't even think was possible. I thought things had finally started changing, which is why I had asked him to walk me down the aisle on the day of my wedding, and he had agreed. I knew he was still really attached to my brother, but I didn't have a problem with that as long as he treated me well like a daughter that he loved. However, after what happened recently, I realized that he would never truly treat me like a priority as long as my brother was around. The only reason he had bothered to try and fix our relationship was because my brother wasn't in the picture at the time. Ultimately, I had my stepdad walk me down the aisle instead, and it was so special. He treated me like his daughter, and I couldn't have asked for a better person to be there for me. As for my dad, he showed up after the ceremony and had a few words with me, but it wasn't the same. He cried when he saw photos of me walking down the aisle with my stepdad, and I felt bad for making him feel that way, but I couldn't help but think, this is your fault. Now, my dad keeps calling me, asking for a second ceremony. He says he wants to make it up to me, but I don't know what he expects me to do. The wedding is over, and what's done is done. I can't change that.